Hi, this is Khizra Munir and welcome to Wowcast, a podcast brought to you by Women of the World Festival, Pakistan. So our guest today has played an instrumental role in shaping the tech ecosystem of Pakistan, and I'm going to get right into it. Jehan Ara is not just a tech pioneer. She's a builder of ecosystems, companies, and futures. In this episode, we're sitting down with the former president of P SHA, founder of Katalyst Labs, and the visionary behind Nest.io to explore her two-decade journey shaping Pakistan's digital economy. From boardrooms to incubators, Jehan shares what it takes to lead with integrity in male-dominated spaces, the power of saying no, and how she's creating room for new voices, especially women and young people, in tech and entrepreneurship. We talk about navigating government advisory roles, championing leadership, and why empathy is still one of the most underrated tools in innovation. This is a story of legacy building, boundary breaking, and the relentless belief in people and the ideas that change the world. Welcome to Wowcast, Jehan Ara.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're so
Khizra.
excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm going to jump right into picking your brain. And
Okay.
these are questions you're going to have to be very honest with us because I think everybody wants to know.
I'm always honest.
Okay. Now, you have to share the secrets of how you've managed to do so much because I mean, all of these, it just embodies everything you've done.
Okay.
Okay. Jehan, you've worn so many hats: tech leader, founder, mentor, policy voice. But if someone were to ask you today, what do you do? What would your answer be?
I'm often asked that question. What do you do? And I say, I only do what makes me happy and what I think creates impact. If it's needed, then I'm willing to do it. If I'm passionate about it, then I know I'll do it well. And that's all. I never decide beforehand that this is what I'm going to do. As long as I have the capability, as long as I have the passion, as long as I believe that it will make a difference, then I'll run with it.
Okay. You've helped shape Pakistan's digital ecosystem long before it was even called an ecosystem. Take us back to the beginning. What pulled you into the tech world and what kept you here?
So I grew up in Hong Kong and tech was a part of life.
Right.
When my parents moved back to Pakistan, I moved with them. And macro media, which was a tool all the agencies were using and marketing companies were using, somehow it wasn't being used in Pakistan as much. So I brought the distributorship for that. And there are a couple of people here, Zahir Kidwai, Sabeen Mahmood. We started enabling technologies and we decided we were going to use macro media tools to create products that people should be excited about. And then maybe others would also buy the product and use it.
Right.
And so that's how it started. But once that started, I looked around and I saw that there was an organization called P SHA, and there were no women in it. So all the IT companies that were represented in P SHA were all represented by men. Maybe because there were no women who started companies at that time, but there was no requirement that the person representing your company at P SHA had to be the CEO. It could have been the CMO or the CCO. So this could have happened if the CEO had decided that, look, we need representation from a diverse number of people in our organization. So then I started making a noise. I said, why doesn't P SHA have women? And I also said, some of the decisions that are being made at P SHA, I don't think represent us. And so I told Zahir Kidwai, I said, we should be part of P SHA. And he said, I'm not interested. He's never interested in anything to do with these kind of things. He thinks it's a waste of time. So I said, well, I'm interested. He said, then go ahead, go and represent us on the P SHA committees. So I went and I complained about almost everything. When I see anything wrong, I just don't hold back. And I think I gave them a very hard time. So when the chairman at that time decided that he was going to change companies and he would no longer be the chairman, a group of them came to me and said, you're always complaining, so take over the job and show us how it should be done.
Yeah, you think you know how to do it.
Yeah. So I had no choice. So I was stuck with it. And it was at the same time that my mother had passed away, and it left a major gap in my life. I had to do something that totally drove me. And so I joined P SHA and I worked 24 hours a day. And that kept me going. And I think that made an impact to the organization as well, because I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was just thinking, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do it well? So that's how it all started.
Well, you did it well. So being president of PASHA for like 2 decades is not a small feat. When did you realize that this was bigger than yourself? When did you realize that you could do more with this platform, that you could actually make a bigger impact than what was happening on ground?
I don't think I can specify a day, a date, or a time. It's just that when I became president of PASHA, I started going around the country, meeting a lot of companies run by young people, and I saw that they had no role to play in that. So I started asking questions. I said, what are we doing to highlight these companies? What are we doing to involve them within the organization? What are we actually doing for them at all, other than saying, we are PASHA and we represent you? And not trying to minimize the work other people had done, but I think since all of us were running our own companies, nobody wanted to take out that much time to do anything else. And they thought that the primary purpose of PASHA was to talk to government about policy. And that's true. That's still one of the primary purposes because it affects everyone. But come on, we can go further than that. We can do other things. So that's when I started thinking about it. And I said, okay, what does the community need? What do we need to do to ensure that they grow? And that's when we started things like Startup Insiders, where a couple of us got together and said, okay, there are experienced entrepreneurs who have grown companies from just a basic idea. They've had challenges. Why don't we get them to talk to groups of young people and tell them how they did it? And should just be an informal Q&A type thing. And we started doing it in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. Then we started something called the PASHA Launchpad, which was, okay, if you have an idea, come and pitch it to people who've been there, done that. Not very old people, but people who've run companies for 5 years, 6 years. And let's give one of them a certain amount of money so that they can take that idea forward. And that then grew into a thing. And we had a winner who every year who then took that idea and took it forward. So Farhan Masood, for example, came up with an idea. He wasn't even coming to pitch in Lahore. And I phoned him and he said, I'm sleeping. I gave him a hell my mind. And I said, listen, this is an opportunity. You can do this. I think your idea will work. And he came and he won that competition. And look at where he is now. He's in Chicago. He's developed security products people are using all around the world. It was his work, but it was that initial step that he took where he was recognized locally that then encouraged him to move forward. So those are the kind of things we did. And then, of course, the PASHA ICT Awards, which we started in 2003. And the whole idea was, let's recognize people who are innovating. Let's talk about them. Then maybe local companies will use these products. But more important than that, maybe international companies will start buying these products and services.
Right.
So those are the kind of things that we took forward.
So, I mean, the world has really changed now. Like, we're actually, keeping in mind that there's like a gender balance and there's a lot of conversation around that and there's enough people making noise around that. But like, when you started and when you sort of entered PASHA, the world was very different. At least in Pakistan, it was. And you've been in rooms and sat at tables where you were an exception as a woman. How did you sort of learn how to take up space? And what was that journey like? It couldn't have been easy.
It was scary, to tell you the truth. If you walked into a room and there were 100 men there, it was just an informal meeting of IT people. And everybody turned around and looked at you, you would want to just hide in a corner, right? And not say anything. But then you had to be brave and you had to move forward. So I did. And I would go and join any of the groups and they would stop talking. So I thought, I know a lot about IT.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. Why have they stopped talking? So then I would say something to sort of make sure that the conversation was restarted. And so after a while, I mean, these people are not bad people. They were good people.
They're just not used to
They just were not used to having a woman with them in that group. And so once they got used to me, they were very nice. Some of them were extremely supportive. And that's how it just went forward. I think you just have to get beyond that initial fear, which I did. And then you have to make sure that you bring other women in. Because if you don't, then you'll always be the only woman in the room. And that's not what you want to see.
Absolutely, because where does the change come in?
Yeah. The change only happens if you have more women.
Exactly. So, you've talked often about the power of saying no. Like, even if you've taken up space, like you said, if there's 1,000 men in the room, you kind of feel overwhelmed. But you've been able to say no in a lot of situations. And how do you get that strength? How do you get that confidence to be like, no, I'm going to speak up and say no to this, or, I'm going to keep saying yes, but I'm not going to keep saying yes, even though everyone's treating me like it's a privilege to be allowed into this space. How does that strength come in?
So I think if you do the work that you know that you're capable of doing, they start to see the difference you're making. And so when you say no, they stop to think. Because you're not just saying no for the sake of it. You're saying no because you actually believe that there is something wrong in the way that this is proceeding.
Or there's a better way to do it.
Or that there's a better way to do it. It's a discussion. It's never you said yes and I said no, so let's see who's right or who's going to win. It's a discussion. Let's see what works better for the association, for the sector, for the companies. And whatever works, it's not about an ego. And that's where I think it has to stop. You should stop thinking that, I have to be right. No, let's discuss it. Whoever's right, it's fine. As long as it's good for the sector, it's good for the economy, it's good for the companies that you're representing.
So another way that you've been an absolute trailblazer is when you launched Nest.io. I think when you launched it, it was a completely new concept for Pakistan. It's very novel. No, I don't think anybody knew what an incubator is. How did you convince people that this is necessary? How did you convince people to sort of have faith in the fact that we need to create this and believe in the concept of what this is? Can you just take us through that initial journey?
So there was an incubator that had already started at the Punjab IT board that Umar Saif had launched, and that I was on the board of, and several of us were on that board. And we saw that it was something that was bringing young people into the organization to pitch ideas, to to seek help. And so then I said, well, why isn't there one in Karachi? And I would see so many young people who were graduating from universities, because I love hanging around young people. I think it's what keeps me young. So I would go to universities, talk to them, and ask them what they would be doing. And all of them said, well, we will join Systems Limited or TechLogix or one of the big IT companies, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with joining. None of them ever said, I want to start my own company.
Right.
And so I found that really annoying. Annoying because the sector will not grow if only the current set of companies continue to grow.
Right.
It will only grow if there will be new companies, new players with new ideas, innovation happening, that the sector will become much more diverse, will have different kinds of people running it. So I asked many of them, why don't you start your own companies? And they said, well, we didn't know that we could. Nobody ever mentioned it.
Right.
So their university professors, their families, nobody ever suggested to them that they should start a company of their own. And that's how the Nest.io came about. But to start Nest.io, it was a part of P SHA. But to start it, we needed to have money. And so we had to sell the idea to someone. So a group from Google was here in Pakistan, in Islamabad. And the lady who was heading it, Mary Grove, she said to me, if you had one thing that you could wish for right now, what would it be that you think would make a difference to the ecosystem? I said, well, I think if we could start an incubator in Karachi, it would be great, because there are lots of talented young people in Karachi who never get the opportunity to try out ideas, try out innovative things that they might think will work to make a difference. And she said, why Karachi? I said, because Karachi is the biggest city in the country. Karachi is where I live, so I could run it, and I could make sure that the things that were needed were done. She said, okay, so how much money do you need? And like any young person, I was younger then. No, I hadn't worked it out. What do you mean, how much will it cost? So then back of a napkin calculation with Jawad Fareed, who's always been my uh, co-founder in crime. I said, let's work it out. Let's ask her. So we gave her X sum of money that we needed. And she said, okay, I'll give you half of it. But I'll only give you half of it when you find the other half.
Oh.
Which is, I guess, a rational way of looking at it.
But it's also a great motivator.
It is. Because if she had just given it to us and we hadn't found the other half, we would not have been able to run the nest the way we were able to. So off we went, and then we found another non-Pakistani organization. We went to every large Pakistani organization there was. Everybody just didn't. They said, what's the advantage of doing this? What's the ROI? I said, building up young people, making sure they build businesses, isn't that an ROI? No. Nobody wanted to do it. Some of the biggest businessmen in this city, no. Then we found Samsung, a Korean organization, who said, oh, they didn't understand either what we were trying to do. But they figured if Google was in it, there must be a reason. So
by association, you left out.
So they gave us the rest of the money. And then when we had that money, then we got a call from the US State Department to say, we believe you're doing something with Google. We want to be a part of it. I said, well, we have the money. We don't need any more. I mean, who says that?
Yeah.
But when we said that, they said, no. They tried to convince us to take the money. And so they gave us some money as well. Just as well, because we had not estimated right. And we did need more money than that.
Thank God.
That's how the Nest.io began.
Thank God they forced you to take money.
I mean, who does that? But yeah.
So Jehan, I've seen the way you ran Nest.io. It wasn't like it wasn't like a conventional organization. You ran it like it was like a community. It wasn't small companies trying to build themselves. It was more than a community. It felt like a family. Everyone felt like you were like the mother goose taking care of everybody. Why did you think you wanted to run it like that?
So I knew that the young people who would join the Nest.io would be young people who were just experimenting. And they were similar and yet very different. So what they would need is support. What they would need is somebody who would listen to them. And they would go through times when everything they were trying would fail. And so I felt it couldn't be, oh, come in, take a desk and just do what you do.
Yeah.
I would have to be there for them. And once they started coming in, they started feeling like family. They were youngsters who needed guidance. And sometimes they would come to me late in the evening, sit down. One of them had a fight with their co-founder and just wanted to just throw the towel in and say, forget it, don't want to do this anymore. One of them would be heartbroken. Some of them lost parents during that period. We just were there to support each other. And that family that Hizra you talk about still exists. That community still exists.
Exactly.
Now, even today, when anyone has a birthday, there's a celebration, there's a loss in the family, all of us get together. And we make sure that person is not alone. So obviously, there was a culture. It just happened. It was not planned. But we became a family. And we made sure that we were there at each other's, their weddings, their losses, whatever happened, we were there to support them as much as we could. I remember one of them who lost his father. He was in Islamabad when he heard about the loss of his father. When he flew back, there were a group of youngsters who went to receive him at the airport, brought him home, and his mother had to empty out the living and dining room because there was just no room for anyone else there other than all the nestlings, as they are called. And they were just there and they just stayed. And many of them stayed overnight because they felt he needed that support. So I think that is just, that's something that is needed not just by the Nest community, the support that we need to provide to each other whenever we see anyone struggling. That's what is going to help us grow.
I think we don't factor in the emotional side of building a
We
business,
don't.
and
We
that,
feel that that is time being taken away from
yeah,
making money.
exactly.
And that isn't. And then you saw some of them collaborating, doing all sorts of things together, which maybe they wouldn't have thought of unless they were this close.
And also, we kind of sort of assume that having money saved is a good sort of cushion, but having a community that looks out for you and will protect you is also the kind of cushion that helps you grow
Throughout
and build.
life, not
Yes,
just throughout your business.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, I mean, this is something that I've always sort of um, really been inspired by, and I felt like I just wanted to. So then you eventually pivoted to Katalyst Labs, and obviously, knowing you, you weren't going to do the same thing you did previously. So how did you do Katalyst Labs differently? Like, what was a gap you saw that you felt like filling when you started Katalyst Labs?
So I didn't voluntarily leave the Nest IO. Let's be honest
Right.
about it. Pasha decided that I should leave,
Sure.
and that they could run it themselves, which is fine. So I said, okay, I can help you, but they did not need my help at that time, they felt. The sad thing about that is that the Nest IO never continued after that.
Yeah.
Which is the silly thing we do as a country sometimes.
Yeah.
That you have a brand that is well known around the world, and you just shoot it in the foot and kill it. I mean, that's no way
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
build organizations, right? But anyway, then one of our startups said, "Oh, you have nowhere to go? Come, we'll give you a big room that we have. You can start whatever you want to do. You can start it here." See the support, it
Exactly.
goes both ways.
Exactly.
And then my car was also one that belonged to Pasha. Another one of the startups came and said, "I have an extra car. Why don't you take it until you are able to buy a new car?" So I had a car. And this was the day before Bakra Eid. So you can imagine what I would have done if I didn't have a vehicle.
Wow.
At that time, there was no Kareem Uber type things. So I would have been left in the lurch. So now I had a car, I had an office space that I could go to after Bakra Eid. And then I started thinking about what to do. Fortunately, HBL said, "Whatever you do, we will fund it." And so I pitched to them the idea. I said, "Okay, I think there are enough incubators now across the country."
Yep.
And LUMS, of course, had already started one round about the same time that we had started it. But then NUST had one. Then there were several others that had started. So there was no need for another. And most of the universities now were asked by the HEC to have an incubator. Well run, not well run, that's debatable. But they're all trying. And some of them are being advised by those of us who've been in the business for a while, because we want to see more
Right.
incubators run. And I said, okay, so what's the next step? These companies get to a certain stage, they need to then grow. And many of them don't know how to grow.
Yeah.
So then they fall flat on their faces. So an accelerator is what exists in many parts of the world. We should start one. So
And for anyone who doesn't know the difference between an incubator and accelerator.
So incubator is when you're just starting your business. And an accelerator is when you want to grow that business, accelerate that business.
Right.
So there are different things you need to do. You need to raise money. You need to grow your team. You need to know how to expand the business to other countries or other parts of your own country.
Right.
So those are things where you need advice.
Yeah.
And also you need financial management skills. You need leadership qualities. All that is something that you're not born with. Those are things that you learn. Unfortunately, our universities don't teach them these basics. So that's what we decided that we would do at Katalyst Labs. And one of the other things that I had always had a pet peeve about was the lack of women in leadership. So I said we should have a women leadership program where we talked. There were a lot of women now who were at mid management, and that was good to see. But they were not growing up to become CEOs of companies, to go onto boards, all of that. So I decided that Katalyst Labs should focus on that area as well.
Right.
And so these are the two things that we do, other than the two startup events, which is Karachi Slush and +92 Disrupt. So that was a startup event that I already had started while I was at Pasha, 0 to 1 Disrupt. because they didn't want us to continue to use the name. I just changed it to +9 to Disrupt, and it became a countrywide startup conference rather than a city one, which a lot of people in Lahore and Islamabad were very happy about because they wanted us to come to Lahore and Islamabad anyway.
I think that's amazing.
So yeah, so that's what we do now.
So I think even in this, while you were telling me, you sort of touched upon it, and you often say that we need to create space for others. What does that creating space for others look like in the ecosystem, and how do you know when to step back? Because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, because opportunities are so difficult to come by. That aspect of gatekeeping comes in. So how do you step back?
So I think if you have confidence in yourself and in what you're doing, you want to make room for other people. So a lot of people call me, and from the early days, they used to call me and say, we want to start up an incubator and we want to come and pick your brain. And I would say to my team, do they think I'm stupid? Like they want to get into my business and they want me to teach them how? And then I started thinking, I said, yeah, I mean, this is a big country. There is a lot of need for such spaces. There is a lot of need for such work. And so then I started talking to people, and even to date, people come to me and they phone whether they want to start a company, whether they want to start an accelerator, whether they want to start a new startup conference. They come to me and say, okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I don't think I have felt threatened by that. Because if I run a startup conference or I run an accelerator, that doesn't mean that that is the only one that should exist in the country. This is a huge country with a huge young population. So a lot of work needs to be done. So the more space you create, the more likelihood that you will be able to help the economy to grow and help the young people who live in this country. So I think it's just a question of, be confident in what you're doing and just make room, because what you're doing is not exactly the way somebody else will do it. So if Wow has a podcast and somebody else has a podcast, it will be approached very differently. It will be run by people who are different. The topics will be different, and all of these are needed. So I've never felt that you should keep people away. Even people who have worked for me, sometimes they go and they join companies that are doing similar things, and they come and tell me. I said, just don't ditch me. Come and tell me you're going, tell me what you're going to do, seek my advice. Maybe I have information about that organization that will help you. So just tell me. And more often than not, they do. Many of the people who worked for me are now working for either Google or Facebook or larger organizations. And it's great to see. And you know what happens if it's a community? If they see an opportunity for Katalyst Labs, they will call me and say, hey, we've heard about this. We think you should be involved in this. And so, it's them helping me.
It's coming full circle.
It's coming full circle. So that's, I think that is something, that's the way that we should look at it. Not, hey, I'm doing this, so nobody else should do it.
So there are so many lessons to be learned here. As a mentor, you've sort of literally, I mean, it was called The Nest, and the analogy I use for that, you were like the mother goose taking care of everyone. So
Big Bird.
The Big Bird.
I'm still called Big Bird.
So as a mentor, what has it taught you about yourself? Because there's a lot of internalizing that happens when you're mentoring other people also, because we all have our personal struggles also. So what has it taught you about yourself, about the ecosystem, about women in this space, and young people in tech also?
So, we always think if we're older, we know better. That's not always true. Many times, many of these young people have mentored me in, when I have gone through very difficult times, whether, somebody's upset me and I'm just not being able to tackle with it. They'll come and they'll sit in front of me and they'll say, okay, so what's the matter? And I'll say, no, nothing. No, something is the matter. We can see it. So tell us, out with it. And then they will listen. So sometimes you just need to be heard, and that's enough. Sometimes they're looking at it from a totally different perspective, and then you can see it. Hey, yeah, why didn't I look at it like that? So the mentoring can be from both sides. And I've seen very often that now, after so many years, they're also making introductions for me. They are coming and hanging out. They still need help. Sometimes they're just upset. They still need to have a conversation. So that is still happening. And the help that I need, they're always there for me. So once I remember I hurt my foot, and one of the founders went and got a bandage. They said, you need to bandage this up. I said, no, it's fine. You know how it is. You just want to ignore it.
Yeah.
They bandaged the foot. One of them drove me home. They said, you're not driving with that foot. I said, look, I have an automatic car. I don't need you. No. One of them drove me home. Another one followed him, picked him up, and brought him back. So, taking care of each other, making sure that your mentor is also taken care of, connecting you with other people who can help me with the work that I'm doing or with anything. It's good to know that they're around, that I can rely on them.
Yeah.
During COVID, we helped each other a lot because there was just, everybody was worried. Everyone was concerned about what was going to go on. And just a conversation with one of them helped.
So when we talk about the tech ecosystem, everyone's obsessed with disruption. It's such a buzzword now, but you've really championed continuity, community, care. How has empathy sort of changed the way you look at this space?
So as I said with other things, I don't think about it so much. It's just, this needs to be done. This is the person who needs to do it. So for instance, with our startup conference that we have, you see who needs to be projected and how it can help them, who is doing something that's interesting that you want to talk about. It doesn't always have to be you. It can be someone else.
Yeah.
How can you use a person's ability in the conference that you are creating so that it can project them automatically? So those are things that you think about, and I think it helps you, and it also helps that person to be seen as someone totally different by the ecosystem. And then somebody else calls them and says, hey, would you do this for me as well? And it just automatically works out for everyone. So I don't know why more people won't do that. It's, being commercial doesn't mean that you don't look out for somebody else.
Right.
Because when you do, it automatically comes full circle and you're able to do something for yourself at the same time. So that's the way I approach it. And I think it works.
And I feel like, so everyone who's worked with you or in your space, the startups that have worked with you, the founders that have sort of been born in your space, I'm guessing a lot of them sort of learned how to be leaders through your example. So
I would hope so.
Right? So
otherwise they get slapped.
So when they go back and run their own companies, they're like mini proxies of Jehan Ara.
Well, I hope they've learned how to treat their people.
Right.
I hope that they've learned how, everything is, you make mistakes. How they've learned to deal with mistakes and come back up and, pivot, do what needs to be done. I think they have. Many of them are much maturer now than when they started.
Yeah.
Many of them have failed. And that's something that we need to learn in this country. Let's accept failure and let's then move on.
Yeah.
Let's not hold ourselves back because we failed once or twice or thrice. I have startups who've started companies, who pivoted, who failed, and then have started a second company, and now are international players. So I think that is important for us to talk to these young people about that. Listen, it doesn't happen the first time.
Right.
Sometimes you might get lucky, but more often than not, most companies are built from mistakes that you've already made and learned from. And so I've seen them. I've seen the leadership qualities that they have. And as I said, they now help me sometimes in recognizing what needs to be done.
So I think you sort of answered this in the conversation we were having already. Like, I was going to ask you what was a point in your life that would have broken you, but it ended up being like a complete turning point for you. And then, I mean, at the risk of knowing what the answer is, I'd love to hear you.
That was definitely the death of my mother.
Yeah.
And simply, there was a good reason for it. I mean, everyone's mother is special to them. But because my mother was very ill for over 20 years and I cared for her,
Right.
so I was with her all the time. That's where technology also helped, because I could be by her bedside in a hospital room for 10 days at a stretch.
Right.
Nobody knew. My customers didn't know. My team, of course, knew because I told them.
Yeah.
But I was able to function without a break and be there for her as well. So
Right.
I believe technology has a very important role to play.
Yeah.
So when she died, it was like after 20 years of being with her, suddenly finding, what am I going to do with myself? That the one person who mattered most in my life was no longer there. And that's where Pasha was so helpful, because I just, people said, you know, it seems to us that the devil is after you and you're running and you won't stop.
Yeah.
And that was exactly the way it was. And so there was a lot of travel, there was a lot of hard work, no rest at all. Didn't think about it until I sort of would totally collapse. And then I'd say, okay, let's take the weekend off and then move forward again. So I think hard work helps when you're going through a very tough time. Just not being able to think about it, just focusing on something else, it really allows you to survive that period. And that's what happened. And then I was able to be there for my dad and for my siblings. It just took time, and that time Pasha provided because of the work.
What would you like your legacy to be?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it when people.
Well, I'm making you think about it now.
So,
You've done so much in terms of, for the ecosystem, for young people, emotionally, but also professionally. What part of that do you want people to take away?
I think if people could just support each other, be there for each other, that's the important thing. I remember, this is a funny story, but about 9 years ago, and I saw this post 2 or 3 days back, where I was invited by the White House to speak at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit at Stanford. And there was a letter from President Obama asking me to go and speak. You should have seen the excitement, like the excitement of not only my community, but we were driving down Sindhi Muslim, and these kids in one of the cars put their heads out and said, "Congratulations, we're so proud of you." And so I feel that if you can be happy for other people and their progress, and you can see that this is beyond yourself, that is something that I would like to see more people doing. There are quite a few people who support each other, who teach each other, and who try and make sure that other people succeed. But I don't think there's enough who celebrate other people. You need to be able to celebrate others, because that feeling you can never get from anything else. Being able to be happy for someone else. And I am, like some of my startups who are now doing so well, I look at them and I'm so proud of them. And I just think, 5 years ago or 4 years ago, they were just there with an idea, and now look at them. And it's hard work that they've put in. It's ideas that they think would make a difference to the community. So, they tried it, they worked hard, they came for mentorship, they got investment, and now look at where they are. So, if you can make that difference in somebody else's life, I would like to see more people do that and not think about what's in it for me.
So, very jokingly, earlier on, you were like, I have a really bad memory. I don't remember things. But you remember things about people that really make them feel special, and they make them feel recognized, or that they matter to you. And like, just putting in a personal example here, I had just come back from like a year of studies, and you'd asked me to moderate a session for co-working spaces, and I was just like, okay, I'll come and moderate it. And I was like, why did you think of me, Jehan? And you were like, why wouldn't I think of you? You were like one of the pioneers of the co-working space.
Exactly.
And I was like, to have Jehan, I went home and I called my friends and I was like, Jehan Ara said I was the pioneer of the co-working space. I was like, it felt like such an achievement. Like you didn't need to give me an award or anything.
No, but
Having
it
you
was.
say that.
So what does it take away from me, as we were talking earlier?
Yeah.
You were. And so for me to say that doesn't take anything away from me, but it makes you feel very, very special.
That was my biggest flex for like the longest
Why
time.
won't anybody else do this? Why won't more people do this? But yeah, no, I have a bad memory, but there are things that stick in my mind, especially from the early days. People that I've met, people that I've known, people who've done something special or something new. There is no way that you can't. I might forget the name. Your name I didn't forget, but there are people whose names I forget, but their faces I don't forget. And when somebody says, "You don't recognize me, do you?" I readily admit to it and I say, "Listen, I'm getting old. I really know, I know you well. Please remind me." So, they laugh and they don't take it personally. And that's the way it should be. Like, would they prefer it if I pretended that I remembered them?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I mean, I'm 70 years old now.
No.
Yes. And so for me to have a memory that I had at 25 is, people shouldn't expect it.
I feel like you were just sort of like, even in one of our conversations, we interviewed someone. We're sort of focusing on women defying the conventional norms of age, because there's this whole narrative around not asking women their age. And it's so, like, I'm feeling like it's so necessary to ask women their age, because that's when we realize that, life doesn't stop at like 30 or 40. You can just keep achieving.
No, I still, if somebody says, "How old are you?" I still say, "Well, why do you need to know?" But at the same time, I readily admit my age. And then they say, "No, you can't be that old." I said, "Well, I'm doing better than you." So, I mean, it's fine. Age is just a number. It really is. And if you can be active at my age, can do the things you want to do, I think I'm blessed. Right? A lot of younger people, I talk to my team all the time and I say, "Look at you. I'm the first in the morning. I'm the last one to leave. I still do some work when I go home and I still socialize. And you people are always complaining about, we're tired and that's why we weren't able to go up. We went to a wedding last night. Hey, I do that as well. But I'm still here first thing in the morning." So you have to be really happy with the work that you're doing to make it to work at 8:45 every morning, despite everything that's going on in your life. That means you're excited about the work you're doing. So yeah, age is just a number.
So what gives you hope right now in this, in this very constantly changing dynamic that the world is in right now, whether it's the startup ecosystem, whether it's, the state of affairs, or whether like globally, everything is so uncertain. But despite all of it, what gives you hope?
I think the young people in this country continue to give me hope. Yes, I know we grumble about some of them not putting in the effort that they should, but those who do, they've made such a difference. I know because as part of PASHA, we've taken many of them to the region to compete in awards at APICTA. And in the beginning, we used to lose so badly in the first 2 years. And then we started winning because we trained them on how to pitch, how to communicate, how to respond to questions. That training was necessary. That mentoring that many of the more senior people from our ecosystem gave them helped them. And they were able to win awards. There was one year, I think we won 8 awards.
Wow.
And we came back on such a high. Unfortunate thing is, nobody in this country, in government, appreciated the fact that if we had won a cricket match, sure, I mean, there would be, the whole country would be celebrating. But these young people, innovative, tech-friendly, being able to compete with the best in the region from Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and coming back with 8 awards, come on, you should be on high heaven saying, "Yay, we've got such intelligent kids in this country."
Absolutely.
But no.
It has to be sports.
It has to be sports, and not all sports either.
Exactly.
It has to be cricket. And I love cricket. No, there's no doubt about the fact that many of us love cricket, but that doesn't mean we should ignore other sports or other achievements that young people are going through. It's something that we have to get over.
So Jehan, who is absolutely young at heart, is the biggest champion of the youth.
Yes, absolutely. I think they're the ones who are going to take this country forward. And they're the ones in the majority. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's true.
So if we don't pay attention to them, they could throw us out
We need
and
to
say,
respect
we
them.
don't need. We need to respect them, and not just because they're the majority or that they're growing older and they're going to take over from us. It's because they deserve that respect.
Yeah.
I think every person deserves respect. If you can give it, you'll get it back as well.
That's true. Wow, this has been I mean, I've been on the metaphorical edge of my seat this entire conversation, because you've, mashallah, done so much work in this ecosystem, Jan, and so many people owe their sort of success or their beginnings to you. And to have you here speaking to us and for this podcast was just an honor. Thank you so much for taking out time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the hot chocolate. I've still got to finish it.
You have to finish it.
Yeah, but it's been amazing talking to you. It's
Thank
just
you
a conversation, and I think that's the way I love it. It shouldn't be prepped, and it shouldn't be, you're going to be asked this question or that, and you have to.
So it wasn't like an exam.
It wasn't like an exam. Otherwise, I would have been
all
nervous.
The answers.
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe some of the answers were incorrect, but that's okay.
You get 100 out of 100.
Thank you. Oh, yay.
Thank you so much for joining us for Wowcast, and we will keep bringing you amazing stories of inspiring Pakistani women. Thank you.